It's time for Fast Five. Let's get to our first topic. Google vows to stop creeping on user emails.
That's good.
Thanks for getting with the program, Google. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about privacy in technology and what companies are able to see from us. And I think part of the reason that Google might have done this, at least a small part of it, is saw with when Apple stood up to the FBI after the San Bernardino terrorist attacks, refusing to create a backdoor for the iPhone so that the government could get in and see what this terrorist phone activity was. Obviously, this isn't defending terrorism, but it was a strong stance that was taken by Apple in defense of people's privacy rights and protecting the information of their customers. So I think, obviously, good that Google's going to stop creeping on our stuff.
Tom,
Well,
got any more to it?
Well, I just like to have a few less ads, you know. So.
How about
Well,
you?
and I think there's a great degree of nuance because from the Google standpoint, and I'm not justifying this practice at all. Actually, I think this is why, from a business standpoint, I would never never advise a business to ever go on a Google platform. They were not, so first of all, the snooping, quote unquote, that they were doing was to capture metadata about the content and searches and everything else, all the user activity that a user was conducting on Google, whether through the search engine, whether through email content, whatever. And it was anonymous, so it was not tied to an individual user necessarily, but it was to cater advertising for that user so that they would get more clicks and it would collect more revenue. I think it's egregious. Honestly, as an email provider, especially on the commercial platform, the provider themselves should have no access to that data. That data belongs to whomever the entity is that's subscribed to the email system. And I am glad that they're doing that. I just want to provide that.
Okay, let's go back now into Trump signs a VA reform bill. And in that VA reform bill, he's got the right to fire people now. Is that going to answer what we need to help our veterans? Is we can now fire anybody in the VA's 350,000 people?
Probably not when they're going to take money away. With one the other hand, you know, with the new health law,
You know,
it's going to hit the veterans.
the VA
so
and
it's,
and Ron,
looks
I know to the both of us this is a near and dear issue. The VA has been a disaster for a long time, and I think it's unconscionable that we treat our veterans. So as you may well know, as a veteran, if you go to get help, if your only option is to get health care through the VA, you're put through a horrible system where your outcomes, and first of all, the wait times are horrible, your outcomes are horrible, and luckily for both of us, we're not in that position that we have to rely on the VA, but it is unconscionable that we ask young people to oftentimes sacrifice their life.
Yes.
And we're not willing to give them the same care that we give the people we send to Washington who are supposed to be protecting these people.
In other words, if you stop giving the people in Washington the health care that they have now, maybe they would come up with something to get their health care
Or
back.
we
Either that
all
or
have
give
it.
everybody else the same health care
Healthcare
that
they
we
have.
If we had the single payer, this would be no issue.
Yeah.
It's a lot of overlap. This looks good.
Obviously, protecting our veterans is something that we can all agree on, and there's a lot of agreement at this table, and that it's an easy issue. But I think the fact that this bill passed 368 to 55 in the House, and by a voice vote in the Senate, they didn't even have to count the votes in the Senate. I think in the aftermath of the Steve Scalise shooting, and in an environment where we're very polarized politically, I think it's good that you see at least some bipartisan cooperation, even if it's just a little
Well,
bit.
nobody
No, and
wants to vote against
you're absolutely
veterans,
right. And
put it that
honestly,
way.
I mean, of course, first of all, who would ever disagree with something
Yeah.
that benefits veterans?
Yeah.
But second of all, I think you bring up a
Simple
very good point, which is that it's okay to have disagreements.
Exactly.
And this is what makes our democracy strong. But at the end of the day, we expect the people we vote for to actually be able to work together and get stuff done. So yes, it shouldn't be a celebration when they actually manage to do it, but it seems like it is.
Send
Well,
out
it's a good
the
sign.
flares, Well, it's
Senate probes Lynch interference allegation. What looks like the Senate wants to keep something alive there since
Well,
we
yeah.
got Russia and the president. Now we have
it's another sideshow to take up the media time and suck the air. Out of the other investigations, I think there may be, that's not about treason. The other one is possible
and
treason.
look, as
So it's
much
very different cases.
as much as I agree with you, and I think you're on the right track, the whole tarmac meeting,
Yeah.
they should have known better. It was just wrong.
Well, I think so.
And this is coming about a year after that tarmac meeting, so I think it's appropriate, I guess, among all these other
Well,
scandals that they're bringing this back
Well,
up a
it's
year
not
after that.
appropriate because I'm not saying they shouldn't do this at all, but right now the focus should be on the major threat, what Russia did and who did it, it does not come anywhere near this. And part of what happened here, is something that was the result of apparently Russian actions, and it was even Trump himself who said, please hack some more to the Russians. So.
I
to
love
lump these-
WikiLeaks. I love WikiLeaks.
To put these two things together, it just doesn't make sense.
Wouldn't
to me
you
other
think
than a
one of the
sideshow
things
at
that
the
we ought to
moment.
do
make
before
sense.
we get into to Lynch, investigating Lynch, is find out why the President Attorney General isn't having a briefing on the election results,
Because
on
he
the
recused
hacking,
himself.
not on the election results, on Russia, on the election results and our election process being hacked. Don't you think our current Attorney General should be leading an effort to ensure that we have qualified, clean elections?
I think there's no real evidence that the election itself was hacked. I think obviously there
That's a
was
talking
Russian
point, Tyler.
interference.
That's only a talking point. The action came, and you know where it came from. The action came from the fake news that was put out there, not machines.
Yeah.
Even though there were machines that were hacked.
And they tried.
Yes,
they
and they
tried.
tried.
According to what the latest testimony, they tried. And they'll only get better at it.
Okay, the next one we have Trump approval rating rebounds.
Well, that is kind of. I mean, rebounding from what?
0. So
You know-
anything is an infinite improvement.
And this was one poll. If you look
Yeah.
at the polls from this past month, 5 of them were under 40%, 5 were above. Now, this is this is not even your fair finish.
According to a Quinnipiac poll that I heard this morning, 43% versus 42% of registered Republicans think he should stay away from Twitter at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and
That's a
here's
good
an
idea.
interesting note on this poll that shows the Trump bump, which is a Harvard-Harris poll. It wasn't even a normal poll. It wasn't a random sample. It was a poll that people had to opt into, which, as anyone who's taken a basic high school statistics class knows can very much skew the results based on the enthusiasm of the respondents and
Because
a
it would
number
take
of other factors.
the effort to actually go in. and
Exactly.
opt
So
into
I
it.
think this is something that we shouldn't really be paying
Okay, here's
attention to.
another one we got to get
We
into.
agree
What do
on
you
that.
guys
We
think of
agree.
Topless protest held in West Virginia?
Well,
What do
I
you
would have
think
shown up, but I probably would have caused some accidents.
Should women be able to go topless in West Virginia?
Well, they were
It's the same as men.
basically talking about even breastfeeding, is the main issue
So,
that's there.
let me
And,
s-
I mean, this is ridiculous compared to Europe and the rest of
It
the
is.
world.
It
We're
is
nuts. I
absolutely
mean, we're
ridiculous.
just
Let me say one single thing, which is every
I
single
never knew you to say
person,
to one single thing.
every single one of us at this table, at one point or another, is directly thankful or is abreast as directly responsible for our being here.
For our being here, yes.
I have no problem with
So
boobs.
we don't
But
have
not
problem
in
with
public.
that. No, I mean, well,
Why? Who cares?
they do
Stay
it all the
tuned.
time in
Last
Europe.
call is next.
Okay.